Hello, A-Push. It's Mrs. Zimnick. I am here to discuss the Woodward article with you. If I am talking to you right now, that means I am probably not in class, which makes me super sad because if you can't already tell this about me, I really enjoy talking about Reconstruction. I think this is a fascinating part of our country's history, and I feel like Americans don't understand it enough. So buckle up because here we go. So first thing I want you to do, if you haven't already, is look at that article, and I want you to get some great quotes and evidence ready to go on some of these questions. These are the questions I want you guys to kind of touch base and think about. The first one, who were some surprising people against suffrage? Like, for instance, Thaddeus Stevens. Wait a second, I thought he was a radical Republican. Aren't they all in favor of civil rights? Yeah, but not at first, right? So why did this change? Why did he change his mind? Hint, it's political. Okay, number two. In what ways was this event political or even business motivated? So this kind of goes along with this here, but think about how the Republicans after the war, especially, are concerned with kind of building infrastructure and how there are a lot of industries that grew from the war. Okay, number three, and this is a really important one, and I know I've already kind of touched base with some people on this in class, but why did Northerners grow tired with Reconstruction after the 15th Amendment was enacted? So think about the timeline here. Why, after the 15th Amendment was ratified, why are a lot of Northerners going to kind of say, meh, we're done? And so Woodward says this is, quote, too much irony mixed with tragedy. So what is the irony here? Okay, we've got three amendments that are earth-shattering, changing amendments. What's the irony and what's the tragedy? Okay, and then what I like to also think about is in light of recent events surrounding racial tensions in the US. Okay, think about things like Charlottesville, right? Think about some of the Unite the Right, the rally that happened. How might Woodward, who is writing this piece in the 1960s, explain current events in a historical manner to someone who has never studied this time period in US history? So think about that. I'm going to challenge you to kind of think about that here, and I'm going to give you some information. So W.E.B. Du Bois, who we are going to talk a lot about starting in Unit 7, he's a Black writer, artist, thinker. I mean, he's just a great mind in American history. And he wrote a book called Black Reconstruction in America. And I really feel like it should be required reading for everybody. And here's a really good quote from that. One reads the truer, deeper facts of Reconstruction with a great despair. It is at once so simple and human, and yet so futile. There is no villain, no idiot, no saint. There are just men. Men who crave ease and power, men who know want and hunger, men who have crawled. They all dream and strive with ecstasy of fear and a strain of effort, balked of hope and hate. Yet the rich world is wide enough for all, wants all, needs all. So slight a gesture, a word, might set the strife in order, not with full content, but with the growing dawn of fulfillment. Instead roars the crash of hell. So I've linked to that here. So when you click on that, you can learn a little bit more. So I always like to kind of throw out the idea of Martin Luther King Jr., right? Because this is when C. Vann Woodward is writing this article. It's 1960. So this picture, let's contextualize. Do you know what's happening here? Do you know? This is 1963. This is the March on Washington, right? We've got thousands and thousands of people in the crowd. Here's the Washington Monument. There's Martin Luther King Jr. You look at the crowd and we see African Americans, but I see white allies there too, right? I see kind of a diverse crowd here. They're holding signs. We look at this picture and it's hard to imagine anyone saying that this man is dangerous, right? I mean, you ask Americans today, what do you think of Martin Luther King Jr.? And I would bet it's a safe bet. Most people are going to say, oh, he's amazing. He's one of the greatest people in US history, right? Let's look at the time that he was viewed by most white Americans as an extremist when he was alive. So look at this, you guys, 1966. Okay, this was the question that was asked. 72% had an unfavorable rating of Martin Luther King Jr. Can you imagine what would happen if somebody today said, I have an unfavorable view of Martin Luther King Jr.? You'd look at them like they were a crazy person, right? Even in 1987, 76%. Okay, today, in case you're wondering, if you go to this article, you'll find out today, I believe it's 94. There's still 6% of people out there. I don't know, maybe they were dropped on their head as babies. No, I'm sorry, that was rude. 6% of people out there that think he is a dangerous extremist. But the majority of us say, you know what? He was a great person in US history and the world is a better place because of his actions. Okay, but it's a reminder that during their time, sometimes people who later on we look at as heroes were not viewed that way in the time. So if you think about that and you look at some of his quotes, these are not the quotes that typically get passed around on his birthday, right? I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. He writes this in his letter from a Birmingham jail, which we will study when we get there. But I'm bringing it up here because, folks, he's talking about the apathy, right? The moderates who want order, who don't want to rock the boat. This is the same argument Van Woodward is making about something that happened 100 years prior. Okay, so think about that. We talk about democracy being fragile. It's not, the Ku Klux Klan were not everyone, okay? There were a lot of other people who either chose to look the other way or just grew tired of the struggle and gave up. And so I think that's something that we can still kind of see even today. So the civil rights movement that you probably think of is during these years, right? And I think when Van Woodward calls his article the political legacy of the first Reconstruction, that's because he's making the argument that he's living in a second Reconstruction. Okay. This moment, we're going to study this too. If you've seen the movie Remember the Titans, oh, good movie. Good movie. You should see that. This picture comes up. Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Mexico City Olympics, okay, gave this salute, which was widely seen as being the Black Power salute. They also said they were standing in solidarity with some of the people who had been attacked in Mexico City and also against apartheid in South Africa. So the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, stated that their actions were, toolbar, go away so I can read it. There it is. A deliberate and violent breach of the fundamental principles of the Olympic spirit. They were stripped of their medals. Interestingly enough, the IOC president was also the president at the 1936 Berlin Olympics when Jesse Owens was there in Germany. So this was not a popular thing at that time. Today, a lot more people tend to say, you know what, that is their expression and they should not be punished for expressing themselves, right? So time can really change things. And so one thing I think that we're really going to start to focus on as we move forward in U.S. history is, you guys know, the first enslaved people were brought to Jamestown in 1619. We just had the 400th anniversary of that. Okay, with the failures of Reconstruction, we're going to see that we're going to enter a period where there is no legal enforcement of civil rights. Okay, and unfortunately, you guys are going to see that that is not struck down completely until 1968. The last segregation in housing was finally struck down in 1968. So if we take a timeline here, 1619 to 1968, here is a visual representation of the time when all Americans enjoyed legal equality, okay? 12.5%. You guys, this is a new period in U.S. history. You are living through a new period. The default of U.S. history has not been freedom for all. Okay, this is a tough pill to swallow. I still struggle with this one. It's hard to wrap your head around this and really look at it and say, wow, you know? But this is what I think is going to help you understand some of the things we're seeing right now is because we are in a new era, okay? And remember we said there's backlash, there's counter-revolution. The struggles you're seeing right now, we are in a new era of American history. So what are we going to do with it? Okay, I'm going to leave you with this last thought. Are we in a third Reconstruction? Going to leave you with that. I can't believe I'm not there to have this discussion with you. Have a good discussion. There's lots to talk about here, and I will catch up with you later.